goodness, here we go. Hello and welcome back to Blackwatch Intel. My name is Crashy, and today we're going to be doing something that I literally just watched XQC do on his stream. Now, here's the thing. We're going to be watching and reacting to this video. It's called Overwatch vs. Mercy Misguided Meta, and it is created by Entertainment System. It was posted live 2 days ago. Now, here's my disclaimer to start off. Yes, I'm an XQC fan, and yes, I am not a fan of the pre-nerfed Mercy. And I've given lots of talks and explanations as to why, and I myself want to do what Felix just did and talk about this particular video, because the scary thing about this video is that if someone like Stylosa or Overwatch Central or like Astro Kitty or any of the huge Overwatch YouTubers felt this way, this would have a crazy like wave impact on the mentality of players in Overwatch, and that is absolutely horrifying because this video is probably one of the stupidest things I've ever seen. So let's go ahead and try to get into this.
Blizzard made some radical changes to their flagship support healer, Mercy. For the uninitiated, Mercy can heal characters, make them stronger, and fly to characters in her line of sight. Before the recent changes, Mercy used to be able to revive any amount of characters that were within a certain area of effect. After the changes, the resurrect ability was changed from her ultimate, an ability that works on a gauge, to a cooldown ability. So now, instead of her being maybe able to resurrect up to 5 characters a couple times in a match, she can now resurrect 1 character every 30 seconds. Her new ultimate ability is called Valkyrie, and it lets her fly freely, heal or strengthen more people in a chain,
and last for 15 seconds.
An ultimate is ideally an ability that can turn the tide of battle and help a team attain victory on any of Overwatch's main game types, which are all objective-based. A fundamental change to an ultimate ability is not unheard of in Overwatch. Aside from the usual tweaks and balances any online game gets, sometimes major shifts happen. Symmetra was an underutilized support.
Okay, so he's just giving a little bit of backdrop, kind of explaining what Mercy's meant to do, explaining like what Valkyrie is, and then he's going to start getting into argument points pretty soon, and it kind of starts with him talking about Symmetra. So we'll go ahead and listen to this. I just wanted to add my input, so I'm not just sitting here watching for no reason.
Hero that was given a second ultimate to choose from depending on what her team needed. Her pre-existing teleporter can get you from your spawn point to the action. You can now also use a shield generator to add a layer of protection over your entire team. However common these tweaks and balances are, it's rare that one is so controversial as the recent one for Mercy.
So the whole Symmetra section was just him explaining that it's not uncommon for them to make big changes in order to obtain some form of normalcy for a hero or balance for a hero. Now, it was very obvious that Symmetra's teleporter in lots of scenarios was totally useless. I mean, sure, you could get value out of it by putting it in certain situations or like certain areas, but I think like in Street Phase, let's take Hollywood for example, Street Phase, it's much more valuable in most people's opinion, even though Symmetra's not good there at all. It's much more valuable to have a shield gen than to have a teleporter on a point like that. IMO. So that's kind of what he was explaining. Now he's going into how controversial Mercy changes are.
Even after her fundamental change, she's received multiple waves of nerfs that weaken her abilities further. Blizzard has gone on record as stating that changes to Mercy come as a result of opinions of top-tier competitive players that have all said that she's not fun to play against or as.
I don't know that that's true, first and foremost. I specifically remember Jeff Kaplan saying that they don't balance around a certain set of people. I mean, this is very fresh in my mind because it's wrong in my opinion, but that doesn't matter. It's neither here nor there. But I don't think they've ever come out on record and said, yeah, we're changing Mercy because of what the pros say. You know, he even made that video talking about balance. It was one of the developer updates recently, either the last one or the one before it, where he talked about the triangle of balance. And it's like the devs team's intuition, the community, and then I think it was like the pro scene. And I might be wrong about what the 3 points of the triangle were, but it's definitely not that they balance around the pro scene. So I think this is just objectively wrong, but we'll go ahead and indulge.
The pros saw her res ability as fundamentally broken in a first-person shooter because in their opinion, when you kill a character, they're supposed to stay dead. In other words, they feel like Mercy gives enemy teams an unfair advantage.
Right, so if you could secretly go back in time.
So, and this was a point that I think is important to outline because it's a very easy point to make, and it's the first thing that XQC said. it's not that she gives an unfair advantage to the enemy team. It's that she gives an unfair advantage to both teams, thus creating a scenario where she becomes objectively overpowered by being a must-have or 100% pick. So let's say we'll take his first initial statement. She gives an advantage to the enemy team. We'll take that at face value. What that means is we're going to say our team is not running a Mercy, their team is running a Mercy. They have an objectively clear advantage over us. And that is true. That's what happens with Mercy. So what do we do to counteract that? We also run Mercy. That is the problem. That is a huge part of the problem. So, yeah, I don't even know why you would say that statement, because it is true, and it creates a big part of the problem, which is the fact that not only is she super strong, she's necessary on both sides.
Sneak into Blizzard HQ and remove one character from Overwatch because they annoy you. Who would it be and why?
Mercy?
Yeah, I think it would have to be Mercy.
Mercy.
Probably Mercy.
I think Mercy.
Mercy. Mercy, actually.
I would remove Mercy.
So if I could go back in time and secretly remove a hero, it would definitely be Mercy, because I think Resurrection as an ability in a first-person shooter game like Overwatch, it's not fun to spectate, it's not fun to play with, it's not fun to play against, especially.
You can't really punish people, because like when you kill people, you're supposed to punish the enemy team for it. But like if you can res your team, it's like, oh, I have to try to re-kill you and like make you do the same mistake over again.
This is the notion that I'm going to...
So I just wanted to kind of backtrack a little bit on the thought of not having a resurrection ability in a first-person shooter. One thing that Silk Thread specifically was a first-person shooter like Overwatch. So he means a game very specifically to Overwatch, like a game that's like this. And so that's a little bit hard to interpret, because he could mean that for, you know, any of the variables that make Overwatch different than other first-person shooters. But just off the top of my head, I do kind of want to talk about resurrection in shooters in general, and there are three that just stick out in my head that I'm going to bring up to give an example of how it's different and how that works in other games. So one that comes to mind that is pretty similar, like as close as I can think of to Overwatch, is Dirty Bomb. When you're downed in Dirty Bomb and you need to be resurrected, essentially, you have to have a player that will run over to you and has the like defibrillator paddles, and they have to get close to you and defib you, if I remember correctly. I haven't played that game in a really long time, but the difference between that and Mercy is that it's just, and this is something I've always said when talking about Resurrect, it's objectively hard to do. It is very, very risky, and it puts you in a situation that can be punished. Mercy does not have that with flying and Valkyrie and instant resurrections with the speed of Guardian Angel that she had. The next example is going to be PlayerUnknown's Battleground. If you get downed in duos or squads, you have to have a teammate come up to you, stand still for like, what, 5 or 6 seconds to revive you? Again, objectively hard to pull off. And then a game going back to my grassroots, my first competitive scenes, the place where I grew up and started competing in gaming, Gears of War. In Gears of War, they have what's called the DB&O, which is down but not out. When you get downed, you're on the ground crawling, and you can get up, but a teammate has to walk over to you and tap the X button and pick you up. So again, it CCs themselves, it puts them in bad positioning. All of these games hold that same trend. It's objectively hard to do because there's a risk involved with it.
To attempt to disprove in today's video. Overwatch is an objective-based game. It requires tight coordination with your team, switching heroes when necessary, and guarding your point or payload. This isn't a game where the most kills wins, not in competitive play anyway. As such, you have to adapt and communicate to win. Of course, kills play into this, as the less enemies on an objective, the easier it is to capture or move. But these complaints act like there aren't numerous counters to all versions of Mercy, past and present. The easiest one that you can...
This is the part where things get spicy, because it's so ridiculous. Also, I do want to just say, like, in that last little section, he just contradicts himself in a really weird way, and it's so minute that you barely even notice it. He says, like, oh, Overwatch is an objective-based game, and this isn't a game where kills win you the game. And then he goes on to say, well, of course, the more kills you have, the easier it is to take the objective. Yeah, of course it is. That's the point. That's why kills are so important. That's why it's a shooter game in the first place. That's why it's a fighting game where you want to kill your opponents. So yes, kills do matter a lot. They matter an immense amount. So now let's talk about Sombra.
Point 2 is Sombra. Sombra's main purpose is to sneak around the map, disable the enemy's health packs, and disable abilities of the enemy heroes so she and her team can capture the objective. However many complaints there are to Mercy, it's rare that in a high-level competitive game you see somebody experience a problem with Mercy, switch to Sombra, and neutralize the enemy team's health packs, and then Mercy. Sombra is not...
Dude. This is the part that just gets, like, frustrating to watch. Because I would say that his understanding of the usage of Sombra is very subjective, and I think anybody that pays attention to the pro scene or anybody that actually watches Overwatch or plays Overwatch knows that she's not a strong offense character. Like, she's not a strong character to fill in the, like, damage role, and the trade-off with Sombra and where she gets her value is the utility that she brings. So yes, being able to hack people, building up EMP, and, you know, being able to provide some slight healing by hacking health packs, that's definitely true. But in a game like Overwatch, one-to-one counters mean very little. Meaning, if you have a dive comp, most of the heroes in dive, if you really look at them, or at least the DPS heroes in dive, they are one-to-one countered by Pharah. That's important because if I'm playing solo queue and I'm playing Genji, Pharah could be a big problem for me. But in a very coordinated setting, dive comp doesn't really have problems dealing with Pharah because you can simply kill the enemy team. You can dive the enemy team, you can use coordination. There's much more variables to it than that. So could Sombra counter Mercy by being able to hack her and controlling or using EMP? Yes, absolutely. But the one-to-one counter is not enough, and it's not necessarily even a very good counter. So, I don't know. I just can't get on board with this argument, particularly.
Not even the only character with the ability to flank either. Any high-speed player can, and most likely should, find a path around the action to a Mercy and take her out before making any other kills. Mercy doesn't have high health, and her...
This is the part that I absolutely love, because I debunk this argument every day that someone brings up this particular angle for a Mercy balance. And this is the argument, essentially. I'm gonna dumb it down a little bit because I do think it's important to understand. The argument is, well, if you just kill Mercy, then she's not overpowered. So I'm going to let this segment kind of wrap a little bit, or I'm going to get to a good stopping point, and then I'm going to destroy this argument.
Mobility is tied to other characters, so she's easy to predict. The best way to counter Mercy? You click on her head. Pro players take a lot of pride in their destructive abilities and sharpshooting, and there's nothing wrong with that. But their complaints that Mercy negates their actions wouldn't exist if they flexed, flanked, and took Mercy out.
Okay, I think this is a pretty good spot because he kind of circles back to his initial point. He starts off by saying, you know, there are many flankers in the game, and they should always find their way around the action and focus the Mercy before killing any other targets. And this is where the argument, like I said, really starts, where he says, well, if Mercy is dead, if you focus her, if you click on her head, if you shoot her, you kill her, she's not overpowered. This argument is and will always be the dumbest argument when talking about hero balance. And I can explain it for a ton of reasons, and we're going to do that really quickly. So, Mercy needs to be focused. Absolutely. But that doesn't take away the potential that the hero has. So I should like build a graph or use hand motions or something to explain this. But let's take Mercy. Just think about Mercy. The lowest amount of potential she can have would be X. The highest amount of potential that she could have would be Y. Now, it doesn't matter what your skill level is. Anyone, if you're bronze or if you're top 500, could still AFK and spawn and get X value, or be insanely good, play the game very well, and get up to Y. Now, I'm not saying that every player in the game will be able to achieve Y, but it is possible, literally, undeniably. Any person in the world has the same physical limitations to either have X value, which is none, or Y value, which is the most imaginable. It is a mathematical fact. If you can reach that value, she can do it. And that has nothing to do with skill. So, when people say, oh, get good, kill the Mercy, it never changed the fact that Mercy could still do what the character can still do. She can still fly in uncontested with no counterplay and get double reses off. That does not matter if she's dead, because she could still technically do it. And it's just not a good argument to say, oh, well, you need to kill that person. and that makes the balance okay. What you could say is if that person was dead, then she wouldn't be able to do that, which is also a literal statement, but does not touch the sector of balance at all.
Right now, Sombra is a niche hero for this reason. However, despite her utility, Sombra is not in the meta. She's a very special kind of pick, but can be utilized very well if people pick her up more often and get her in the meta. This brings me to my next major reason why these changes negatively affect the game. They set precedent.
Okay, first and foremost, he says Sombra is a niche hero, and people, if they pick her up and use her like properly or in different situations, they need to bring her into the meta. One, I would argue that Sombra is in the meta, but for your own reasoning, is in the meta very, very niche. She's very, very niche. She's a good support pick. She's good at breaking certain points and holding certain points by gathering and collecting an EMP and using it, but she is not good for the reasons that you state. And the reason she is so niche is, again, because you trade off lethality for heavy utility. So, just no. I just don't agree. I think you're wrong.
For the meta to dictate active development instead of the inverse. For those that don't play competitive games, meta is a term that essentially means how the dominant strategies and counter strategies have settled. Typically, the flow of meta is that a game is released, and then players find the best strategies. At that point, the developer of the game may step in and tweak some features in order to balance out the game, and the cycle repeats itself. The problem with this most recent change to Mercy lies in that instead of the competitive community finding the most efficient way to counter Mercy, of which there are many, they pressured Blizzard to overbalance her to the point of near uselessness. Developers balance and patch online games all the time. Sometimes it's to fix large unfair problems, but this is an example of a developer responding to meta instead of the meta responding to the developer. And that can cause a ripple effect that changes the game in immeasurable ways.
No. Again, wrong. What Blizzard did was they reworked Mercy because they and the community thought that the original version of Mercy was not playing as intended. They did not like the hide and fly strategy. And I think that was a good thing. I think it was a good thing, but I don't think that the changes came out that were good. So what happened was they came out with a version of Mercy that was the strongest hero that has ever been released in Overwatch. I mean, undeniably, 3-4 reses in a single Valkyrie, instant, flying around, 20-second Valkyrie. It was insane. So what they then did was they responded to how overpowered she was. They responded to the meta of seeing Mercy a lot, and they tried to walk her down. And I don't know, I feel like this point gets overlooked because it turns into a negative thing instead of a positive thing. What Blizzard did was great. They realized that they needed to bring Mercy down because she was too strong, and they tried. Now, their inadequacies or their faults, falters to bring her down to an appropriate and balanced state has nothing to do with their intentions. So, yeah, they saw that Mercy was overpowered, and they tried to walk her down. But they're not responding to... I forget how he even says it. This is the developers responding to the meta, not the meta responding to the developers. Those go hand in hand every single time. The developers respond to the meta by saying, oh, okay, this version of Mercy is way too strong. She's getting picked too much. She's getting too much value. We need to change her. When they change her, the meta responds to the developers. So, what? What did he even say? They literally always happen hand in hand. So look at the pro scene right now. They're still playing on the Mercy patch. What's going to happen? They still play Mercy. Coming into Stage 2, the Mercy patch is going away. What's going to happen? They're going to respond to those changes. They're going to stop playing Mercy as much. They go hand in hand. It's a parallel. So whatever, definitive odd point he was trying to make was non-existent.
Competitive Overwatch is about objective control. Mercy facilitates that. If you make her a useless hero, you can start to see a shift in the meta that makes players focus on objectives far less. Blizzard...
Mercy facilitates objective control? What does that even mean? If Mercy facilitates objective control as much as any hero facilitates objective control. You know why? Because you need an entire team to take or hold an objective. I can honestly listen to that statement and not have a clue what that means. If you nerf Mercy to unusable, that's going to make people stop focusing on the objective. What? Why? What? Hello?
knows how to balance online games. They've done it for years. So I'm not saying that Jeff Kaplan is an idiot and should be fired. I mean, here's a video of Jeff talking about this exact same thing.
Adding somebody like Sombra to the mix really changes the potential for great gameplay. She might not always be the best pick, and she's not the best pick on every map, but she is a really great pick against certain heroes and in certain situations.
I spoke to Vale.
Again, this part I think is incredibly important because kind of a point that XQC made. He literally disproves his argument here, and he doesn't even know it, because Jeff doesn't validate anything that he said, but what Jeff does say is that a hero like Sombra, which arguably could be said about any hero in the game, is going to create really interesting gameplay by being different and being their own unique hero with their own utility and their own, usage, but they're not going to be useful in every situation. The problem is that Mercy was useful in every situation. Rez was never bad, or Valkyrie with Rez was never bad. So again, that doesn't hold up. It doesn't tell me anything toward your argument at all.
A professional Overwatch streamer and the best Mercy in the world in Season 5 of Overwatch's competitive mode, and to date whose 4 accounts are all in the top 100 or even in the top 50 of ranked players nationwide. He shared with me some of his frustrations when playing Mercy post-change. His opinion was that Mercy's new ultimate isn't so much of an objectively bad change so much as it's incompatible with her other tweaks. The point of Valkyrie is to swoop in and patch up your team at greater strength and speed than you could normally. This is done via flying freely. However, at her current state, when resurrecting a character, Mercy has to remain still, putting her in a vulnerable position when she's supposed to be the least vulnerable.
Because it's an amazingly high value ability, and it needs to be objectively difficult and or risky to achieve. We've already discussed this. She does not, any version of Mercy where she has an instant res will be overpowered. And I promise you that. And the reason that's the case is because you will have such high value for free. It's for free. Rez now with live Mercy, where she has the 1.75 second cast and can't do it instant, is still very high value, because now you have a situation where if you have a teammate that dies in a decent position, or you have coordination with your team to save you and keep you alive while you're rezzing said teammate, then you have such an advantage over that first kill that happened. Or you even have situations, and this happens often, and I don't know why people feel like it doesn't. You have situations where mid-team fight, you may be able to sneak over to a dead enemy, or a dead ally rather, and res them. Res is high value, and even the version of Mercy that we have now on live, in terms of res, not Valkyrie, and we'll talk about that, is still a good ability. It is an objectively strong ability. She does not need it instantly. The point of Valkyrie, and the guy said it in the video, is to fly in at great speed and patch up your team. That does not mean that you fly in at great speed and instantly revive someone. You fly in and have strong healing. That's what Valkyrie is meant to do for now. Strong healing, strong presence with damage boosting.
Vale went on to talk about his perspective as somebody whose livelihood can depend on Mercy being stable.
As a streamer, for example, and content creator for Mercy, it can be really annoying. For example, I've been wanting to make a Mercy guide for a long time now, but I can't make those guides because every single 2 weeks there's another Mercy change. And so when I go, okay, it's been a couple of weeks, I think Mercy might be okay, and the PTR updates and they say, hey, in a couple of weeks we're going to update her again, and they just have done that several times in a row now with very, very big changes. So you have to keep adjusting your playstyle, keep relearning the hero. It's stopping content creators from being able to get value out of teaching others about it as well. So it's making the hero in general much more of a pain.
This is a sentiment.
So this one I'm not going to touch on too long because I don't have the energy to do it. This game is not centered around Vale. This game is not centered around content creators. It's not centered around people that main a certain hero. What this game is centered around is high quality gameplay and balance and hero switching. So if Mercy gets nerfed and it's hard for you to create content for it, switch your hero. Create content for the version of Mercy that's stable at the time, and when it changes, create more content. This makes no sense to me. If I created a guide on Genji, and they change Genji, am I just supposed to complain and roll over and not create another guide on Genji? No. And to say that they were changing Mercy every 2 weeks was just wrong, because she was overpowered and was being changed like 3 or 4 times over the course of like 4 months. So on average, they change to Mercy like once a month. You could have a Mercy guide every month and create a quality amount of content and have things to talk about. They gave you more opportunities to create content, and you being upset about the changes, decided not to. Also, again, to reiterate, this game does not focus around one single person or one single hero. So, I'm sorry, I just don't share that sentiment.
Echoed in many mid and lower tier players. These changes to Mercy are making her a tough choice because there may be tweaks and changes that you may not be aware of or used to, and it could lead to your team losing.
Read the patch notes. Read the patch notes. They are on Reddit. They are on the Blizzard forums. When your game patches, when you're on PS4, Xbox 360 and you see an update, when you open the Blizzard launcher and you see an update, read the patch notes. It will tell you what you need to know in order for you to make the best decision possible about your hero pick and your the way that you play a hero, and it will stop you from losing games to ignorance.
The aforementioned complaint that Mercy's abilities don't belong in a first-person shooter are another thing I'd like to address. She isn't the only hero to have abilities whose effects are both non-skill based and also aren't typically seen in other shooters. Heroes McCree and Soldier 76 both have abilities that let you auto-aim and do heavy damage to an enemy team. However, there's no cry to remove these abilities or characters from the game because they involve shooting and also leave the user feeling satisfied when they get kills.
Okay, first and foremost, leaving the user satisfied when they get kills, that's just a cheap shot. Of course they feel satisfied when they get kills. You don't think it's satisfying to get reses off? Of course it is. The difference is counterplay. The difference is that at any given point, I could pop Valkyrie, fly in, and get a res. The only counterplay is a McCree ult, potentially, or a really insane play from someone else. Maybe like a Widow Snipe or a Hog Hook. There's a very small window of counterplay. It's so small that it's non-existent, if that makes sense. The potential to kill a Guardian Angel Valked Mercy, a Valking Mercy Guardian Angeling toward her target to instant res them was such a small window that it's not even worth talking about. Because it's next to impossible. 9 times out of 10, when the older, the overpowered version of Mercy popped Valkyrie, she was going to get 1 or 2 reses off. 9 times out of 10. Undeniably. The difference with Soldier and McCree, or even Genji for the sake of saying, his ultimate can potentially wipe out a whole team, is game sense, knowing your positioning, knowing, what ultimates the enemy team has, knowing, whether or not you're safe to try to pull off the ult. If you're, Genji, are you going to be able to get in the backline without dying instantly? Are you going to be able to pop the McCree ult without getting hooked or sniped or, just shot at in general? There are so many different variables that can be understood in terms of counterplay with these DPS ultimates that you're referencing, and yet you don't understand that the value from Valkyrie reses was instantaneous. It's not a one-to-one, oh, well, these people can kill a bunch of people and this person can res a couple of people. It's not like that. You have to look at the variables. You have to understand the game at a higher level.
This is a major problem that keeps popping up with many people who play Overwatch. There's a preoccupation with getting the most kills and not staying on the objective and protecting it. Imagine playing Missile Command and not worrying.
There's a preoccupation with getting the most kills and not staying on the objective and protecting it. I think that's just wrong. Again, I've already explained. Kills often lead to protecting or taking the objective. So the preoccupation to get kills comes from the place of wanting to specifically win the game. The preoccupation for me wanting to have a not broken version of Mercy as a Genji player is because I don't want my hard work of, and the mechanical skill that I put in on a Dragon Blade to be erased by someone that can fly in and just double res. And again, to kind of pull in some of XQC's sentiment, not only do you get the double res and remove what, I or someone else has done, you're actually rewarded because Mercy essentially had 2 ultimates. She had the double res and then she has the Valkyrie. That is why she's overpowered. Res was still strong enough with double instant reses that you can double instant res and then you had the 22nd Valkyrie to fly around and be safe herself while overhealing. You know what I mean? It's just not the same.
about your bases. These pro players are clearly talented. They wouldn't be where they are without that skill. But it's clear that worrying about kills over teamwork is clouding their judgment. Nearly every hero has a counter for Mercy, and if these players prioritize neutralizing her, they wouldn't have to worry about their kills being undone in the first place. Simply said, if an ult can execute a full team kill, there's no reason an ult shouldn't be able to execute a full team res.
And again,
So he came full circle, more or less, to the, if she's dead, if you put more energy and focus on killing her, then you won't have to worry about that. And yes, it's true, but again, it doesn't change the potential. It never changed the potential for a hero to, you know, do these ridiculous things that they do. And here is my argument to this, and I've used this one on Facebook groups and on different, you know, like YouTube comments and things, and I think this argument is very important because I have like almost a 100% success rate. Let's imagine a version of Genji where he no longer has deflect, but he has an ability called backstab, and that's his new E or second ability. And backstab, what it does is he can dash and get in melee range, or if he is in melee range rather, he can use the backstab ability, and regardless of who he's targeting, it will instantly kill that target. Why do I create this opportunity or this ability? Well, the reason I ask you this, the reason I talk about this potential ability for Genji is because it is mechanically easy and it is objectively overpowered. And it is the one-to-one parallel between rezzing someone and killing someone. So if you think that this version of a Genji backstab ability would be ridiculously overpowered, then you have just proven to me why an instant res for Mercy is overpowered. Can you imagine if Genji could dash to someone, kill them, and dash to someone else and then insta-kill them just by pressing a button? Because that's what Mercy does, but with reses. She flies to someone, reses them, flies to someone else, reses them. And that's on top of the fact that she gets to use the Valkyrie afterward. Sure, she has to use it first, but there's still an insane amount of value with that.
Game where there's plenty of ults that just instantly wipe out multiple people, that having an ability that brings them back isn't a big deal.
So what should be done? I don't know. I'm not a developer. I do know that there have been plenty of great suggestions, though. One is to make resurrection charges earned similarly to how scrap is earned by Torbjorn. Healing or buffing could tick up a counter that culminates with an earned res charge. Exploitable and predictable in its own way, but the precedent is there. Vale also suggested that res could go back to being instant. As a concession, they could remove her free flight, upping the risk and the reward. Some people have flat out suggested to reverse the entire change, making Mercy's kit the exact same as when the game first launched. All of these changes would require more testing and would result in some people being upset.
I'll say this much really quickly. I think any changes result in people being upset, so that's a pretty dumb thing to say. That's just kind of how games are. People, especially games that have specific heroes and characters, people attach themselves to these people, and it's easy to, or these heroes, it's easy to turn away from the objectivity of balance and you know, and the way that the game really is being played, and to be emotional about your favorite hero and say, oh, you know, that's stupid, I don't want them to do that to Mercy. So it makes sense. As for the couple of ideas for changing Mercy, or I think there was a few ideas, I have never been super opposed from Mercy having to earn her res. It would just come down to how they built it. I don't have an idea for that, I really don't. As for, you know, Mercy keeping an instant res and losing Valkyrie flight, I think that could be okay, but like I've said, I'm pretty certain that an instant res would be overpowered. Now, maybe if it's just one instant res, it wouldn't be so bad, because there would still be scenarios where running other supports would be better, but there would definitely be a case for running Mercy with no flight and instant reses, or at least one instant res. That would be very strong. And on the last point of changing Mercy, changing her back to Mercy 1.0 on launch, I can honestly say it's simply never going to happen. I don't think they would waste the time and money and effort to do all these changes to Mercy to ever take her back. And I don't want to say never, you know, I don't want to say they're never going to do it, but I think it's, you know, 98% sure that they're never going to do that, nor would that be a great solution anyways, because it never solves the original problem with the kind of bad playstyle that version of Mercy had.
But it's clear here that something is wrong, and I hope I've shed a little bit of light on how and why right now it feels like it's Overwatch versus Mercy.
So Overwatch versus Mercy, something is wrong, and what I can say is that what's wrong is people not being objective about things. What's wrong is people thinking that killing a hero makes them balanced. What's wrong is that people can't look at this new version of Mercy and understand undeniably that it is much better for the game, much better for the game, and that from this point, we need to take her forward. And I've already talked about how I would do that. So thanks for watching this video. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I can't get behind this mentality because I think it's harmful for the game. I think it's harmful for people to think this way. And I wanted to give my thoughts on why this is just simply wrong. So thanks for checking out this video. I appreciate you for watching. Please do not leave without leaving a like and subscribe for future content. I appreciate it again, and I'll see you on the next video.
Do you feel your bones start to shake? Do you feel the earth?